What if I told you, not as poetry, not as fantasy, but as fact, that your future is not fixed, that it is not carved into stone by the hands of your past, that the version of you who hesitated, who broke under fear, who lived beneath his power, was merely a rough draft? And what if this speech, that is the moment you take the pen back, understand this, you are not a creature of your past. You are the author of your next chapter. And the pages you write today, with your thoughts, your words, your repetitions, will become the life you live tomorrow. So I must ask you plainly, are you willing to write something new? Not with your hand, but with your habits. Not with ink, but with identity. You did not stumble here by accident. No man finds this message unless something inside him is ready to rise. And though the world may call this just another speech, I tell you, this is not entertainment. This is your intervention, a divine interruption, a mental reprogramming for those who are tired of drifting through their days and are now ready to command them. But I must be honest with you. Hearing this speech once will not be enough. What you repeat becomes your rhythm. And what becomes rhythm becomes identity. So I will speak these laws to you one by one, not to inspire you for a moment, but to transform you forever. And if you have the courage to return to this message again and again, you will not recognize the man you become. This is the foundation of all change, autosuggestion, the deliberate feeding of your subconscious with the truth of who you have decided to be. And these laws I'm about to give you are not theories. They are truths carved from the lives of men like Carnegie, Ford, Edison, Lincoln, and Schwab. Men I studied, men I walked beside, men who did not wait to feel powerful, but became powerful through repetition. And you, my friend, are no different. You are not weak. You have simply been repeating weakness. You are not broken. You've simply been following a pattern that does not belong to you. But today, that pattern breaks. This is your new beginning. This is your rewrite. Let us begin. Law 1. You become what you think about. Every man lives under a law greater than any court, constitution, or nation, the law of thought. As surely as the sun rises and gravity holds your feet to the earth, you will always become the dominant idea you hold in your mind, not the idea you wish for, not the hope you repeat once in a while, but the one you think about most. This law is simple, and that is why most ignore it, because it does not dazzle the ego, it does not flatter the intellect, but it is the root law of all human transformation. Let me speak clearly. You are not your thoughts, but you are always becoming the thoughts you repeat. And the man who allows fear, doubt, confusion, and worry to sit in his mind will build a life that reflects those ideas. This is not philosophy. This is psychology. This is the way your subconscious mind operates. Let us take the example of Andrew Carnegie, the man whose philosophy seeded everything I have taught. When I first met him, he did not speak to me of steel or wealth or politics. He asked me one question: what is the one thing you think about when no one is watching? He understood something the world still struggles to grasp, that the thoughts you entertain in the silence are the blueprint of your results. Carnegie thought about expansion, about impact, about legacy. He saw himself not as a boy from Scotland, but as a force for building the new world. And because he repeated that identity, because he saw that picture every day in his mind, reality was forced to obey him. Now let me bring you to Henry Ford, a man born into modesty, mocked for his lack of formal education. But he repeated one idea louder than all others. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. What was that statement? It was not cleverness. It was mental programming. It was a law wrapped in simple words. Ford thought about possibility, and because he repeated that thought long enough with enough belief, it became the factory blueprint of his subconscious mind. And that mind went on to build an empire. Understand this: the mind is a garden. The seeds are your thoughts, the emotions are the water, and repetition is the sun. Whatever you plant, feel, and repeat will grow. If you plant fear and repeat it, Your life will reflect it. If you plant faith and repeat it, your future will submit to it. Now listen closely. I do not speak of wishful thinking. I do not mean the man who closes his eyes and daydreams once and calls it belief. I speak of the man who repeats deliberate thought until it becomes a dominant frequency. Let us revisit Thomas Edison. Do you think he had no doubt during the 10,000 failed attempts at creating the electric light? Of course he did. But his dominant thought was always, it will work. And because he returned to that thought, not once, not twice, but 10,000 times, the failures could not touch his core identity. He became what he thought about most, and that was light. Let me ask you now, what do you think about most? When your phone is off, when the noise is gone, when no one is watching, what thought do you rehearse in the silence? Because that thought is your true belief. And that belief is building your results. If your dominant thought is delay, then your results will always be stuck. If your dominant thought is fear, then you will always hesitate. If your dominant thought is blame, then you will never move. But if your dominant thought is purpose, if your dominant thought is faith, if your dominant thought is I am becoming the man I was designed to be, then you will begin to rise. You must now begin to guard your thoughts like treasure. You must speak your identity daily. You must write your aim clearly, and you must think only that which you want to become. Repeat this to yourself. I am not a prisoner of random thought. I am the architect of focus. My dominant thoughts are deliberate, clear, and aligned with my purpose. What I think about most, I become. So I choose to think power. Let me offer you a practical system to install this law. Every morning, write down the man you are becoming. One sentence, clear, present tense. Example, I am disciplined, decisive, and destined to build an empire. Every afternoon when distractions peak, pause and speak that identity aloud, as if your future depends on it, because it does. Every night before you sleep, visualize that identity already real. Feel it. Speak it again. And let your subconscious dream about who you've chosen to become. This is how you take command of your mind, not through emotion, not through motivation, but through repetition of identity. This is how Abraham Lincoln overcame depression, political isolation, and national division. Not because he always felt strong, but because he held a dominant thought of unity and emancipation. That thought consumed him. It fed his fire. And though he bent under pressure, he never broke because his thoughts were anchored. That is your task now, to build a mental anchor so strong that no storm can move it. To become the kind of man whose inner voice speaks louder than any external noise. To obey the law that never fails, you become what you think about most. Say it now. I think power. I speak power. I become power. And then say it again and again and again until your subconscious accepts it as truth and your life begins to reflect the law you now live by. Let us now continue to the next law, the law that turns your thoughts into faith-powered action. Shall we begin? Law 2. Faith is the only antidote to fear. If you are to build a life of power, a life of impact, of wealth, of spiritual fulfillment, you must understand this one law more than any other. Faith and fear cannot occupy the same space. One will dominate, the other will die. You cannot speak of transformation while rehearsing hesitation. You cannot walk in destiny while bowing to fear. The moment a man chooses faith, truly chooses it, he begins to kill fear by starvation. Because fear has no power unless it is fed. And what feeds fear? Doubt, delay, confusion, excuses, the absence of decision. These are the conditions in which fear multiplies like a virus. But faith? Faith is not a feeling. It is not blind optimism. It is not a convenient thought you whisper when it's easy. Faith is a state of mind. It is belief installed through repetition and solidified by decision. Let me tell you a story of a man who lived this law fully, Henry Ford. Ford was not respected when he started. He was laughed at. The idea of a horseless carriage was treated like fantasy. Even after early success, his own engineers told him that building an 8-cylinder engine in a single block was impossible. And you know what he said? Build it anyway. They came back again, said it couldn't be done. Build it anyway. He repeated it again, until they succeeded. Why did he persist? Because his faith was louder than their fear. Ford once said, "Obstacles are those frightful things you see when you take your eyes off your goal." That is the posture of faith. You keep your eyes on the vision. You repeat belief louder than fear. You act in alignment with destiny, even when it is not yet visible. Faith is not just positive thinking. It is the deliberate focus of belief, installed into your subconscious mind through repetition and decision. Let us look to Thomas Edison. The man failed 10,000 times to produce a working light bulb. How does a man continue after 100 failures? 1,000? 10,000? The average man quits after 3 attempts, but Edison did not carry average belief. He was obsessed, he was possessed by purpose, and that purpose gave birth to unshakable faith. He said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." What is that? That is a man who refuses to speak fear. That is a man who trains his subconscious to obey faith, not statistics, not opinions, not temporary evidence. Now let us look to Abraham Lincoln, perhaps one of the greatest living embodiments of faith through adversity. Lincoln did not rise to the presidency through charm or popularity. He rose through clarity of mission and the endurance of belief. He lost elections. He suffered depression. He faced ridicule and political betrayal. Yet he continued, and he led a nation through civil war. And during the darkest days of that war, when death and despair hung over the Union, Lincoln wrote affirmations to himself. He spoke words of unity and strength to his own mind. Why? Because he knew that if he let fear govern his thoughts, he would become paralyzed, and the nation would fall. He once said, "The best way to predict the future is to create it." That's faith. Not hope, not chance, creation, repeated belief, spoken into existence. Now, what about you? When fear whispers in your mind, do you answer with belief? When the path grows dark, do you pause or do you persist? You must now make faith your default state. And that comes from 3 rituals. Declare your vision daily. Speak it aloud, not as a wish, but as a law. Act in alignment before you feel ready. Action builds evidence. Evidence strengthens faith. Refuse to speak fear. You cannot afford casual language. Every word trains your subconscious mind. Say this aloud. Faith is not emotion. Faith is identity. I move before I feel ready. I trust before I see results. I act in faith. I build in faith. I win in faith. Understand this truth. Faith is not guarantee. It is guaranteed power the moment you decide to live by it. Andrew Carnegie, who taught me the principles behind everything I now share, told me this: "Mr. Hill, teach men to replace fear with faith. Do that, and they will build anything." That statement became my mission, and that statement must now become your mission. Because fear will not go away through more research, and it will not dissolve through time. It must be replaced by repeated belief, decisive action, and relentless forward movement. This is how you starve doubt. This is how you build certainty. This is how you change your life. By installing the law of faith into every layer of your being. Let this be your command. From this day forward, I will not obey fear. I will act in faith. I will speak belief. I will move like a man who has already won. Repeat it daily. Because repetition is the only thing the subconscious respects. And once your subconscious accepts this law, there is nothing you cannot do. Now, let us continue to law 3, the law that gives your faith a home, a direction, and a fire that cannot be extinguished. Law 3, the law of definite chief aim. There is no tragedy greater than a man with potential drifting in thought, drifting in effort, drifting in identity. Why? Because he has no definite chief aim, no singular purpose, no clear direction. He wakes up not with decision, but with distraction. He walks not with command, but with confusion. He speaks not with conviction, but with hesitation. And what becomes of a man like this? He becomes a leaf in the wind, pulled by opportunity, misled by opinion, ruled by fear, and forgotten by history. A man without a chief aim is not truly living. He is merely existing. But the man who carries a definite chief aim and repeats it, affirms it, breathes it daily is dangerous. He is focused. He is immune to drift. He is no longer wondering what he should do, who he should be, or what he is capable of, because he has already decided. And the mind, once fixed, begins to bend the world to match that decision. Let us turn to the man who taught me this law firsthand, Andrew Carnegie. When I first met Mr. Carnegie, I was a young man with curiosity, but no clear aim. He spoke to me with such intensity, such certainty, that I was shaken to my core. He said, "Young man, a person who does not have a definite purpose in life falls easy prey to petty worries, fears, troubles, and self-pitying, all of which lead to failure." He made it clear, all great fortunes, all great movements, all great identities begin with a clearly defined chief aim. Not a general hope, not a vague idea, but a precise declaration. Carnegie's chief aim was not to merely be rich. It was to become the steel king of America, to revolutionize the industry, to bring structure to a disordered market. Every decision he made, from the books he read to the men he hired to the thoughts he entertained, served that single aim. Now listen carefully. You do not need 1,000 goals. You need one dominating goal, and every other goal becomes a subordinate. Think of Henry Ford again. His chief aim was not just to build cars, it was to make the automobile affordable to every working man. That aim drove him. It guided every innovation, every hire, every system he designed. When others built for luxury, Ford built for the people. He didn't change his aim when it got difficult. He simply refined his strategy. The Ford Motor Company's rise to dominance was not due to superior talent. It was due to superior focus. This law of a definite chief aim separates those who try from those who build. Charles Schwab, handpicked by Carnegie to run U.S. Steel, knew this as well. His aim was to become the greatest business leader of his generation. He wasn't an engineer. He wasn't the smartest man in the room, but he was the clearest. His clarity of purpose made him invaluable. He knew what he wanted, and because of that, every room he entered shifted in his favor. Now let me turn this mirror to you. What is your chief aim? Have you written it down? Do you repeat it every morning and night? Have you built a structure of thought around it? Or are you still wandering, hoping purpose will reveal itself in time? It won't. Purpose is not discovered. It is declared. You must choose it. You must own it. You must train your subconscious mind to accept it as law. Because here's what the average man does. He sets goals that change with his mood. He moves toward ideas that lose fire after a few weeks. He dreams of wealth one day, and then settles for safety the next. He builds momentum, and then lets it rot. Why? Because he never installed a definite chief aim. He never made it law in his mind. And the subconscious mind, unless directed with precision, will default to fear, to habit, to comfort. Let me offer you the exact method I've taught thousands. 1. Write your chief aim in present tense. I am building your exact goal with purpose, clarity, and unwavering belief. 2. Repeat it with emotion, every morning and every night. Repetition with emotion is the only way to impress the subconscious. 3. Act in alignment daily, no matter how small the step. Identity is not what you say you believe. It is what you repeat through action. Let me speak clearly now. Your life will either be the result of a definite chief aim or the result of other people's agendas. There is no middle ground, so choose now. Are you building your vision or are you building someone else's? Say this aloud. I do not drift. I declare. I do not react. I aim. I do not guess. I know what I'm building. Repeat it daily, just as Carnegie did, just as Ford did, just as Edison did. They were not more gifted than you, but they were more focused than you. And now that you know this law, there is no excuse left. Write your chief aim, breathe it, build around it, and when distraction comes, return to it, because everything you want depends on this. And the man who carries a definite chief aim with clarity, fire, and discipline, he becomes impossible to stop. Now, let us move to Law 4, the law of specialized knowledge, the very weapon that transforms aim into strategy and strategy into victory. Law 4, the law of specialized knowledge. Theme: general knowledge leads to general results. Specialized knowledge, when combined with purpose and action, becomes unstoppable. There is a common myth that knowledge is power, but I tell you, that is a half-truth. Knowledge is potential power. Only when it is specialized, is focused, and applied with purpose does it become actual power. A man can spend his life collecting facts, reading volumes, attending lectures, and still live in mediocrity. Why? Because his knowledge is scattered, broad, unfocused, like a flood without direction. It covers everything but moves nothing. But the man who focuses his learning, the man who selects a domain, a craft, a discipline, and then studies it obsessively, applies it daily, and refines it with fire, that man cannot be denied. That man in time becomes irreplaceable. This is the law of specialized knowledge, the tool of all titans, the sharp edge that divides amateurs from architects. Let me give you an example. Henry Ford. Now, Ford was mocked for his lack of traditional education. Journalists tried to paint him as an unlearned mechanic, a man unworthy of his position. So what did he do? He sued them, and when called to testify in court, he said plainly, "I don't need to clutter my mind with facts that I can summon in an instant from a man I hire." He wasn't being arrogant. He was making a profound statement. He didn't need general knowledge. He needed specialized mastery and men who carried it with them. Ford's genius was not that he knew everything. It's that he knew exactly what he needed to know and how to apply it to his vision with ruthless efficiency. Ford understood what most still miss, that the world does not reward the most intelligent. It rewards the most useful. And usefulness is born of specialization. Think now of Thomas Edison. Was he a philosopher, a statesman, a jack of all trades? No, he was a master of applied invention. His knowledge of electrical systems, resistance, materials, and industrial application was deep, not broad. He didn't dabble, he dived. He understood filaments better than anyone alive. He ran experiments not in hundreds, but in thousands. He didn't seek trivia. He pursued truths that could be tested. Because of that, he became the man who brought light to the world, literally. Now consider Charles Schwab, whom we've already discussed. He wasn't the most educated man in the steel industry, but his knowledge of people, of leadership, of organizational psychology, and business structure, that was specialized knowledge. And Carnegie knew this. That's why he appointed him. Not because Schwab knew everything, but because he knew what mattered and applied it with confidence and grace. Now ask yourself, what is the one area I am committed to mastering? What specialized knowledge, if I pursued it deeply, could make me irreplaceable? Because here is the truth. The average man reads 1 to 2 books a year, often at random. He studies sporadically. He watches whatever shows up in his feed. His mind is like an untrained dog, jumping from thought to thought, stimulus to stimulus. He is at the mercy of noise. But the great man, the man who applies the law of specialized knowledge, chooses one mountain, and he climbs it. He studies one field, one craft, one skill, and he returns to it every day until his knowledge becomes instinct, until his repetition becomes rhythm, and his rhythm becomes power. And then the world seeks him out. Let me give you the exact blueprint that was given to me by Carnegie himself. 1. Define your definite chief aim. You've already done this. Now ask, What knowledge directly fuels this aim? 2. List the skills and fields required to dominate this domain. If your goal is to lead an empire, study leadership, influence, systems, and strategy. If your goal is to master a craft, dive into technique, repetition, and innovation. 3. Build your reading list. No more casual reading. Select the 5 to 10 most powerful books or mentors in your chosen area and study them. Not once, not for entertainment. Study to install. 4. Teach what you learn. Carnegie once said, "The best way to deepen your knowledge is to share it." When you teach, your mind organizes the truth more sharply. 5. Apply daily. You don't just study, you build, you test, you move. Every lesson must find its way into action. Now, a warning. This law requires patience. The rewards are not instant, but they are inevitable. The man who builds specialized knowledge over years becomes unmovable. He is not subject to layoffs. He is not shaken by market trends. He becomes the source, and those around him recognize his value. Abraham Lincoln, though remembered as a statesman, was once just a poor farm boy. He didn't attend elite universities, but he specialized in one thing: language. He read deeply. He taught himself law. He studied oratory, rhetoric, and scripture. Why? Because he knew if he could master words, he could move hearts, and hearts, when moved, change nations. That specialized focus is what carried him to the White House, and through the greatest internal war America has ever faced. Let me speak directly to you now. Stop skimming. Stop scattering your energy. Stop consuming what does not contribute to your destiny. Choose your aim. Choose your field. Choose your fire. And then burn away everything else. Say this aloud. I am not a generalist. I am a weapon. I do not chase distractions. I build mastery. My knowledge is deep. My knowledge is rare. My knowledge is powerful. Repeat that daily. Reinforce it hourly. Because the world does not give its greatest rewards to those who know everything. It gives them to those who know exactly what they're doing and do it better than anyone else. That is Law 4. Now, we continue into Law 5. Surround yourself with power. Your environment builds or breaks you. You may believe that success is a solitary journey, that it is forged in the silence of your own mind, through grit, through will, through long hours of invisible labor. And while that may be part of the truth, I must now give you the greater law. No man becomes powerful in isolation. Every empire ever built was first surrounded by the right minds, the right voices, the right energy. You do not rise alone. You rise with the help of those who breathe power into your vision, or you fall surrounded by those who drain it from your soul. Environment is not neutral. It is either a weapon in your hand or a weight on your back. Let me speak plainly. You must surround yourself with people who sharpen you, not soften you, with men and women who speak possibility into your future, not skepticism into your goals. If you are the most driven man in the room, then you are in the wrong room, because what surrounds you will soon be inside you. Henry Ford understood this with absolute clarity. He did not build the Ford Motor Company by himself. He built it with a mastermind group, a concept I taught at length, because it is one of the most powerful laws of achievement. Ford surrounded himself with men who were not yes men, but fire starters. He sought out minds like Thomas Edison, Harvey Firestone, and even brought his thoughts to Luther Burbank. These men met often, not for entertainment, but for alignment. They exchanged ideas, they discussed industry, philosophy, the future, and most importantly, they built belief together, because belief, when shared among strong minds, multiplies, and fear, when left unchecked among weak minds, spreads like disease. You must ask yourself now, who do I allow into the temple of my mind? Who has the keys to my focus, my energy, my conviction? Andrew Carnegie, the man who inspired my life's work, said to me, "Mr. Hill, show me a man's 5 closest associates, and I will show you his future. He meant this. You cannot outgrow your circle. You cannot build discipline in a sea of distraction. You cannot hold to faith when all who surround you breathe doubt. Carnegie handpicked every man he worked with, not only for skill, but for spirit. He demanded loyalty to purpose, hunger for growth, and belief in impossibility undone. He made Charles M. Schwab his right hand, not because Schwab knew everything, but because Schwab believed like fire. His optimism was relentless. His posture was magnetic. He brought out greatness in others simply by the energy of his presence. Now consider Thomas Edison. In his laboratories, he permitted no cynicism. He would remove assistants if they joked too often about failure, not because he was humorless, but because he understood the sacredness of mental space. His laboratory was not only a space of invention, it was a temple of belief. If you could not protect the atmosphere, you were asked to leave. Do you protect your own atmosphere like this? Let me make this even clearer. If you are surrounded by those who mock dreams, those who default to sarcasm, those who normalize mediocrity, those who flinch when you speak boldly, then you are not surrounded by friends. You are surrounded by limitations. You do not need cheerleaders. You need builders. You need men who ask you why not instead of telling you why not. You need women who look you in the eye and say, you haven't scratched your potential. You need mentors who make you uncomfortable with comfort. Now understand, this law is not only about people. It is about your daily mental environment. What books do you read? What voices do you let into your ears? What do you consume when no one is watching? Because your inputs become your internal voice, and your internal voice becomes your reality. If your atmosphere is soaked in power, you will breathe power. If it is polluted with distraction, comparison, and compromise, you will drown. That is why I urge you now to build your mastermind environment. Whether through people, through books, through disciplined solitude, create a mental space so charged with vision that doubt cannot survive in it. Say aloud, I do not allow weakness into my circle. I do not breathe the air of average. I do not seek approval. I seek alignment. Repeat this until your subconscious recognizes it as law, because it is law. You were not meant to build in silence forever. You were meant to multiply, and multiplication only occurs through connection to other great minds. One more story to seal this in you. Abraham Lincoln, in one of the most difficult moments of the Civil War, was known to retreat often to a group of trusted confidants, men who would challenge him, advise him, but above all, believe in the mission of union and freedom. He did not surround himself with flatterers. He chose conviction. And in that conviction, he made decisions that changed the course of history. You will be called to do the same. Surround yourself with power or risk being crushed by proximity to weakness. The law is simple. If you want to rise, raise your environment. Now say it again. I walk with power. I speak with power. I build my circle on fire, not comfort. Let that be your standard. And let us now continue into the next law that sharpens your edge and breaks the chains of hesitation. Shall we? Law 6. Speak as if it's already done. Language shapes destiny. There is a language of kings, and there is a language of prisoners. Every man speaks one or the other. And here's the truth. Before your future becomes reality, it becomes vocabulary. Before you become powerful, you must speak power. Before anything in your life changes, your language must change. The 6th law is this. You must speak as if the victory is already yours. Not one day, not maybe, not if the world allows it, but now. Speak like a man who has already arrived, and your subconscious will begin moving mountains to make it true. This is not motivational fluff. This is the code that governed every great man I studied. Let me show you. Henry Ford once said, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Do you understand what that means? It means that the internal language you use, even in silence, is creating the reality you live in. When Ford was told that a V8 engine couldn't be built in one block, he didn't argue. He simply said, "Build it anyway." Not, "Try it." Not, "See what you can do." He commanded his vision into existence through language. And when the engineers failed, he said it again. "Build it anyway." That was not arrogance. It was alignment. His speech aligned with his identity. And identity builds results. Thomas Edison spoke in future tense certainty long before the light bulb existed. When he was surrounded by critics, financial pressure, and thousands of failed prototypes, he still said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That sentence alone could have been defeat, but he reframed it with a single word, yet. He spoke with a tone that assumed success was inevitable, because in his mind it already was. You must begin to do the same, because your words are not commentary, they are commands to your nervous system. If you say, "I'll try," your mind hears, "We're not certain." If you say, "Maybe one day," your mind hears, "Not yet." If you say, "I can't," your mind hears, "This is who I am." But if you say, "This is who I'm becoming," if you say, "It is done," if you say, "I move in certainty," then your mind begins rearranging itself around that command. Why? Because the subconscious does not know the difference between truth and repetition. It obeys tone, it obeys rhythm, it obeys language. Let me take you now to Andrew Carnegie, the richest man of his time, not because of inheritance, not because of education, but because of belief reinforced by speech. He would write down his chief aim and repeat it aloud, not once, not twice, but every morning and night, in his own handwriting, in his own voice, with emotion and fire. Until that aim was no longer a goal, it was an identity. And from that identity came action, and from that action came fortune. I asked him, "Why do you repeat it, even now?" He said, "Because if I stop speaking it, I start doubting it." Let that strike you deep. Silence is the oxygen of doubt. Speech is the engine of belief. If you do not speak your future with fire, your subconscious has no reason to pursue it. You must become militant about your self-talk. Say it aloud. "I am the kind of man who finishes what he starts. I do not flinch. I do not fold. I walk as if the mountain has already moved." And do not say it once. Say it daily. Say it in the dark. Say it when fear rises. Say it before your biggest decisions. Say it until your very tone becomes proof of your power. Because here is what the great ones knew, and what average men never discover. You don't speak what's real. You speak what will become real. You speak it before you see it. You speak it as if it's already done. This is how you tell your mind, "I am in control now." This is how you reprogram fear into fuel. This is how you starve hesitation and install discipline. It begins with words, and those words must burn. Let me take you back to Abraham Lincoln. One of the most powerful speeches ever written, the Gettysburg Address, was only 272 words, but every sentence was sharp. Every line was wrapped in fire. And in less than 3 minutes, he rewrote the meaning of the Civil War. He didn't talk around the point. He spoke it into stone. Do the same with your life. Get specific. Get loud. Get deliberate. Stop whispering your dreams. Stop apologizing for your vision. Stop softening your future so others feel comfortable. Say it clearly. "I am building something unshakable. I do not drift, I declare. I speak belief until the world has no choice but to believe with me." Now I challenge you. Write your future as if it's done. Speak your identity as if it's law. Repeat it daily until the world inside you begins to shift. And when doubt whispers, when fear tries to return, you raise your voice. You remind your subconscious who is in charge, and say it now, not with hesitation, but with command. "I am the man who speaks power. I am the man who lives power. My voice builds my world." Let this be your new language. And let us now continue into the next law that transforms your decision into destiny. Because words without action are noise, And the next law teaches how to move like fire. Law 7, move like fire, the power of decisive action. There comes a moment in every man's life when the voice in his head must be overruled by the movement in his body, when the questions end and the action begins. Because no matter how powerful your belief is, no matter how strong your language becomes, without movement, it dies on the battlefield of hesitation. The 7th law is simple, but it is absolute. You must act like fire. You must move, not tomorrow, not once you're ready, but now. Action is how you prove belief. Every man who ever built an empire, who ever changed the course of history, who ever rewrote what was possible, did it not by feeling confident, but by moving through the uncertainty. Let's begin with a story you've heard me mention before, but let us dig deeper. Henry Ford had a vision for the automobile, one that seemed laughable at the time. Roads were not ready, cities were not planned, people were skeptical, but he acted anyway. He didn't wait for perfect conditions. He moved. Ford didn't have the luxury of sitting on committees and asking for approval from the crowd. He put his hands in the grease, tested designs, and made decisions. Action became his identity. That's why he said, "You can't build a reputation on what you are going to do." He knew the truth. Only movement builds legacy. Now think of Thomas Edison again. Over 10,000 failures, but he did not pause. He continued. Every failed attempt was followed not by sulking, not by overthinking, but by another test, another experiment, another step forward. Why? Because he understood that motion kills fear. When you're moving, fear can't land on you. It can only attach itself to stillness. And Edison never stood still. Let me take you now to Charles M. Schwab. When Carnegie needed a man who could speak with clarity, act without delay, and rally others around massive industrial visions, he chose Schwab. Why? Because Schwab had a rare gift. He made fast, confident decisions. He moved while others planned. He walked into boardrooms, delivered speeches with boldness, and laid out visions others were too afraid to say out loud. And the world rewarded him for it. Not because he was the smartest, not because he had all the answers, but because he acted. Now you must ask yourself, do I hesitate when I know what I must do? Do I delay under the illusion of preparation? Do I seek more clarity when I already have enough to begin? Because here's the truth. Your delay is a lie. It tells you that waiting is safer, that more information is needed, that confidence must come before movement. But that's not how greatness is built. Confidence is the result of action, not the prerequisite. So you must act before you're ready. You must speak before your voice feels perfect. You must move before your legs stop shaking. You must launch before the world applauds. Because here is a fact I've proven over and over again in my studies. Motion creates belief. The man who acts begins to believe he is the kind of man who acts. The man who waits begins to believe he is not ready. You are what you do. Not what you think, not what you dream, not what you plan, but what you move toward. Let me tell you the story of Abraham Lincoln during one of the most defining decisions of his presidency, the Emancipation Proclamation. There were countless advisors telling him to wait, that the timing wasn't right, that it would divide the country even further, that it could cost him the war. But Lincoln moved anyway. He understood that greatness is forged in decision. He knew that delaying action to please everyone would only weaken the moral backbone of the nation. He wrote the words, he signed the paper, he declared freedom for millions. Not because it was convenient, but because it was necessary. And history changed that day. Not because the world was ready, but because one man decided to move. You must now do the same, maybe not for a nation, but for your own destiny. You must learn to live in movement, to act without waiting, to walk even when the next step is unclear. Because fire doesn't ask permission to burn. It ignites, it consumes, it spreads. And that must become your identity. The man who speaks boldly, the man who acts swiftly, the man who doesn't rehearse fear, but replaces it with fire. Here is your command. From this moment on, you act before you feel ready. You move before you're confident. You train your nervous system that decisiveness is your default. Say this now. I do not delay. I act as if it's already done. I train my mind through motion. And repeat it daily. Because action is the language your subconscious respects most. The more you move, the more it believes. The more it believes, the more power you access. This is how every empire begins. Not with brilliance and not with luck, but with motion. Let this part of the speech be your turning point. The day you stopped waiting, the day you moved like fire. Let us continue into the next law, the one that ensures your power isn't momentary, but permanent. Law 8, train the mind. Master your inner language. Everything you experience, your courage, your hesitation, your decisions, your delay, is not just the result of circumstance. It is the result of the words you whisper to yourself when no one else is listening. This is the 8th law. You must train the mind, and you must master your inner language. Because let me tell you this plainly, the most dangerous man in the world is not the one with the most money, the strongest body, or the loudest voice. It is the man who controls what he tells himself. Your success begins and ends with the words you speak to your own mind, and if those words are weak, your results will be too. When I studied the lives of men like Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, and Thomas Edison, one pattern became inescapable. They mastered their internal language long before the world believed in them. Let's begin with Carnegie. Do you believe he rose from a poor Scottish boy working in a bobbin factory to one of the wealthiest men on earth just by chance? By inheritance? He fed his mind a different language than the people around him. While others were telling themselves, I can't, he was repeating, I must. While others said, this is enough, he declared, there is more. Carnegie once told me that he repeated his chief aim daily, aloud, with emotion. He wrote it down, spoke it, affirmed it, until it saturated his subconscious and reprogrammed what his mind accepted as possible. That's not inspiration. That's installation. That's autosuggestion, the most powerful force in all personal development, a law so potent it can take a poor boy with no connections and elevate him to become the architect of steel empires and philanthropic legacies. It all starts with language. And now let us turn to Henry Ford. Ford is famous for saying, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. But most men repeat that line without understanding its depth. Ford meant it. He spoke belief to himself, even when no one else did. Do you know how many times he was told his vision was foolish? That horses would never be replaced? That factories couldn't scale the way he imagined? But he didn't speak the language of doubt. He didn't parrot the world's disbelief. He created a new language, and he told himself, it will be done. He trained his mind to respond to difficulty with solutions, not fear. And that training, repeated daily, built the mental steel required to withstand the storms of invention, rejection, and ridicule. Now look at Thomas Edison. His success was not born from luck or random genius. It came from a trained internal dialogue, one that refused to translate failure as final. 10,000 failed experiments, 10,000 voices of doubt. But inside, he repeated only one phrase, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. Where do you think that resilience comes from? Not from a rare brain, not from divine favor, but from repetition of empowering language. And let me speak now of Abraham Lincoln, whose inner world had every reason to fracture. Depression, loss, war, criticism from all sides. But Lincoln trained his mind through journaling, reflection, and deeply held affirmations of purpose. He was not always externally confident, but he remained internally committed. His mind did not waver with the storm, because his language had been disciplined. This is the work you must now do. You must become militant about your inner voice. You must speak what you want to become, not what you fear, not what you lack, not what you used to be. Say it now. I do not speak weakness. I install power. I do not rehearse defeat. I rehearse identity. I do not echo the world. I create my own language. Because your subconscious mind does not judge. It simply records. It listens to your most repeated, most emotionally charged language and accepts it as truth. So if you're casual with your words, you will be casual with your power. And if you joke about failure, speak lightly about your goals, or feed yourself the daily vocabulary of mediocrity, then do not be surprised when mediocrity becomes your reality. You must discipline your speech. Write affirmations that match the man you want to become, and speak them aloud every day with emotion. This is not superstition, it is science, it is strategy. It is how every giant I studied rewrote their story. You say you want to be fearless? Then stop saying you're afraid. You say you want to be disciplined? Then stop calling yourself lazy. You say you want to be unstoppable? Then your inner voice must say so before your results ever show it. This is where transformation begins. In the silence, in the morning, before the world gets noisy, before your doubts wake up. You must declare your new identity before the world tries to give you the old one. Let me be clear. This is a battle. The world will speak fear to you all day long. It will shout worry. It will whisper delay. And if you do not have a stronger voice already installed, you will obey the world. You will obey your doubt. And your life will become a reflection of noise, not vision. So I command you now, write your inner language. Repeat it daily. Speak it with fire. Feed your subconscious with discipline, courage, clarity, purpose. Because if you do this for 30 days, just 30, your outer world will begin to shift. Not because magic, but because mental alignment. And once the mind aligns, the body follows, the decisions follow. The momentum begins. You become what you rehearse. So rehearse power, rehearse fire. Rehearse the voice of the man you are becoming until there is no room left for the voice of the man you used to be. Let us now continue into the next law, the one that ensures you never drift again, because your time has been claimed. Law 9, command your time. Own every hour. Let me give you the truth most men run from their entire lives. If you do not master your time, you do not master anything. Time is not simply what passes by. Time is the canvas on which your destiny is painted. Every hour you drift, every minute you waste, is not just time lost. It's potential buried. Law 9 is simple yet ruthless. Command your time, or watch your future die in the hands of distraction. The men I studied, the giants who reshaped the world, Carnegie, Ford, Edison, Schwab, Lincoln, they were not just brilliant with ideas. They were militant with their hours. They scheduled, they structured, they claimed every minute of their day as sacred. Let me begin with Andrew Carnegie. He once said, "Do your duty and a little more, and the future will take care of itself." That little more, that came from how he structured his time. He did not float from task to task. He did not answer to every request. He understood that every hour spent on someone else's aim was an hour stolen from his own. Carnegie organized his life with clarity. Meetings were precise. Decisions were swift. His mornings were for strategic thought, his afternoons for execution, his evenings for reflection. And he demanded the same of the men around him. Why? Because success requires rhythm, discipline, intention. Now let us consider Henry Ford. Most know him for revolutionizing the automobile industry, but what made his success inevitable was his mastery over time. Ford didn't believe in long meetings or drawn-out plans. He once said, "Thinking is the hardest work there is," which is probably the reason so few engage in it. What did he mean? He meant that real thinking, focused, undistracted, scheduled thinking, is rare. Most men think passively. Ford carved time specifically to think deeply, to solve problems, and to act. His calendar was a weapon, not a formality. He knew that every wasted minute was profit lost, momentum delayed, legacy stolen. Now look at Thomas Edison, one of the greatest inventors the world has ever known. Do you think he stumbled into 1,093 patents by accident? Edison worked in carefully timed intervals. He would lock himself in his lab for days. Time was not measured by the clock, but by output. He didn't wait for inspiration. He created the environment that made inspiration inevitable. His laboratory wasn't chaotic. It was engineered for deep focus. His team knew when to work, when to report, when to think, and when to execute. It wasn't freedom that created genius. It was structure. Let me ask you plainly, have you structured your genius? Have you carved time daily, not just for work, but for purposeful progress? Now let us walk into the mind of Charles Schwab. When Carnegie appointed Schwab to lead U.S. Steel, Schwab didn't respond with celebration. He responded with a time audit. He asked himself, where does every hour go? He brought in a consultant named Ivy Lee, who taught him the now famous Rule of Six. Every night, Schwab wrote down the 6 most important things to do the next day and ranked them by importance. He worked on the first until it was complete, then moved to the second. No multitasking, no wasted energy, just focused execution. Schwab paid Lee $25,000 for that advice in the early 1900s. Why? Because the mastery of time is worth more than gold. Let me speak now of Abraham Lincoln, whose presidency was not during ease but chaos. The Civil War raged. Advisors argued. The nation was splitting. Yet Lincoln structured his time with reverence. He carved hours for solitude, for writing, for reading. He met with generals not on their schedule, but on his. He was never rushed, not because there wasn't pressure, but because his time had already been claimed by purpose. This is what you must learn. When your time is claimed by vision, the world respects it. When your time is claimed by emotion, the world owns you. Most men drift because they never decided what a successful day looks like. So they respond, they react, they're busy, but never built. You must design your day the way an architect designs a building. Every block must have a function, every hour a target, every moment a reason. Let me give you a daily structure to begin with. First hour, silence, autosuggestion, visualization. Declare your aim, rehearse your identity, install belief. Second hour, deep work, uninterrupted, no distractions, move the mission forward. Third hour, execution of a major task, no delay, no debate, just movement. Midday, reflection, movement. Feed the body, reset the mind. Afternoon, communication, meetings, strategy, planning. Evening, review, realignment, repetition of belief. Read something that expands your mind, and above all, track it. Every hour not tracked is an hour forgotten. Every hour forgotten is a seed that never grows. Say it with me. I am the commander of my time. My calendar is my shield. My schedule is my sword. No hour is random. No moment is wasted. I build every day like a brick in a legacy. Because this is what separates the average from the unstoppable. Not talent, not vision, but time ownership. A man who owns his time owns his life. You want to become the man you were born to be? Then look at your calendar. Your to-do list is not a list. It is a mirror. It shows what you value. It shows who you are becoming. The man who builds an empire has the same 24 hours as the man who drifts through life, but only one commands it. So begin tomorrow not with noise, but with structure. Begin it not with emotions, but with strategy. Decide now. I do not drift through days. I build each hour like stone. I command time because I command my destiny. This is how you become unstoppable. Let us now move into the final law, the one that does not suggest change but demands it, the law that kills hesitation, doubt, and delay in a single final decision. It is time now to kill the old identity and rise into power. Law 10. Kill the old identity and rise into power. There comes a time in every man's journey when improvement is no longer enough. He must not simply become better, he must become someone else entirely. This is that time, and this is that law. Law 10 is not for the man who wants incremental gains. It is for the man who is ready to kill the version of himself that keeps surviving. You see, the enemy of your future is not just fear or laziness or even ignorance. It is identity, the quiet, unseen agreement you made with mediocrity about who you are. That agreement must be burned right now, because if you do not destroy the old identity, you will always return to it. Just as water seeks its level, a man always seeks his self-image. You may change your habits, your goals, your schedule, but until you change your identity, you will remain tethered to the old life. I must tell you something hard, something most men will never hear. You are addicted to the man you used to be, and that addiction, if not broken, will be the reason you die with your music still in you. Let us speak clearly now. Let us look into the mirror and tell the truth. The old identity, the one who delays, hesitates, doubts, who cares too much what others think, who breaks his own word, who shrinks from fire, who tolerates mediocrity, that man must die. He cannot be managed. He cannot be negotiated with. He must be killed, because he will always pull you back to comfort. And comfort, my friend, is not your friend. Comfort is a prison with gold bars and no locks. The door is always open, but most never leave. Because the old self convinces you that staying still is safer than stepping into fire. But fire is where greatness lives. Let me remind you of the men who walked through fire. Abraham Lincoln, during the darkest winter of the Civil War, was told repeatedly to compromise, to ease the pressure, to wait until the timing was better. But Lincoln knew something that few understood. He had to kill the part of himself that still wanted to please everyone, the part of himself that feared criticism, that doubted his authority, that longed for peace more than truth. And he chose identity over approval. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation in the face of political death, and in doing so, he became someone else. He became Lincoln, not the man, but the legend. You see, legends are not born, they are built in fire. Andrew Carnegie began as a messenger boy, poor, unknown, unremarkable. But every day he acted as the man he was becoming, not the man he had been. He studied success. He wrote down his mission. He visualized power. He rehearsed the posture of leadership long before he had anyone to lead. And eventually, the old Carnegie, the poor boy, the doubter, the quiet one, died. And in his place rose the most powerful industrialist of his generation. Because he chose identity, he didn't wait to feel worthy. He decided to be worthy and let his actions prove it. Now let me speak of Henry Ford. Do you know how much doubt surrounded him? Do you know how many times people told him, "You can't mass-produce cars. People will never accept them. Factories can't be systematized." Ford could have listened. He could have delayed. But instead, he made a final decision. I am the man who changes transportation forever. And every step he took as that man, not the old one. And soon the world bowed to the vision he had already accepted as truth. Do you understand now? Every time you act like the man you used to be, you teach your mind to stay there. But every time you speak, move, lead, train, think, and decide as the man you are becoming, you starve the old self until he has no breath left. This is how real transformation happens, not from a single motivational burst, but from identity repetition. Let me give you your ritual. Every morning, speak your new identity aloud, not as a wish, as a command. I am decisive. I am disciplined. I am the man who follows through. I act like the man who wins because I am that man now. I do not ask permission, I lead. Every time you hear the voice of the old self, the voice that says, "Be careful, slow down, you're not ready yet," you respond with the voice of the new identity. That man no longer speaks for me. That man is dead. I have already decided. Because the moment you repeat this enough, your subconscious accepts it as law. And when it becomes law, everything changes. Your posture, your tone, your results, your presence. Everything, because the world responds to how you see yourself. Not how you feel, not how talented you are, but what identity you practice. Let me give you a final truth. Doubt is not truth, it is habit. And like every habit, it can be broken through repetition, through belief, through violently rejecting the old version of yourself every time he rises. So now I ask you, are you willing to kill the old identity? Not gently, not someday. Now, are you willing to walk into the fire of your future? Even when you feel unqualified? Even when it hurts? Even when it means becoming unrecognizable? Because I promise you this, the man you are becoming is already inside you, but he cannot rise while the old self survives. So say it with me, and say it like you mean it. I am no longer the man who doubts. I do not hesitate. I do not delay. I do not explain. I walk in identity, not insecurity. I repeat power until weakness dies, and say it every day. Because this is your reprogramming, and this is your rebirth. You are no longer allowed to be the man who waits, the man who wonders, the man who hides. You are the man who decides, and the decision has already been made. Repeat this speech, repeat your belief, repeat your identity until the old self cannot survive, because the man who wins is already inside you. Let him rise. Let us end this where all true power begins, with the pen in your hand. You may think your story is already written, that the past has already decided who you are, that your mistakes have formed a ceiling, that your patterns are permanent. But I tell you now, you are not broken. You are unwritten. You are not the man shaped by his failures. You are the man now awakened by them. Every delay, every doubt, every misstep, every fear. It was not the end of your story. It was the setup, the tension before the breakthrough, the test before the identity. It brought you here. And now, this moment is the pen, and you are the author. No one else. Not your past, not your family, not your failures, not your friends, and only you. So I ask you, what story will you write now? Will you continue the old chapter where fear dictates your pace, doubt chooses your words, hesitation holds the pen, or will you rewrite it? Will you flip the page, take the pen with authority, and declare, this is the chapter where I become untouchable. This is where I decide who I am, not once, but every day. Because that is what these 10 laws are. They are not suggestions. They are not ideas. They are the new rules of your identity. And your identity is not written in stone. It is written in repetition. And if you want to become unrecognizable, if you want to become the kind of man who builds, leads, moves, and never looks back, then you must repeat this speech. You must repeat these laws. You must repeat your belief until your subconscious knows no other way to live, because you are not your old thoughts. You are not your old story. You are not the man you were before these words entered your mind. You are what you repeat, and repetition is how the greats became great. Andrew Carnegie did not just dream of power, he rehearsed it every morning, every night. Henry Ford did not just believe he could, he repeated that belief until it became inevitable. Thomas Edison did not just try, he failed and repeated action until he forced success into reality. Abraham Lincoln did not rise by public approval. He chose identity every day until history bent to it. And now it is your turn. Let me give you your new rituals. Every morning you speak one law aloud, just one. Let it shape your tone. Let it dictate your focus. Let it become your compass for the day. Then at night, before you sleep, you play this speech again. You do not skip a day. You do not wait for motivation. You repeat until repetition becomes identity, because what you rehearse becomes your rhythm, and your rhythm becomes your reality. Write this down now. Speak it with me. I am not broken. I am unwritten. The past was preparation. I choose what happens next. I repeat my power. I reject my doubt. I am the author now, and I do not look back. You are not here to cope. You are not here to repeat history. You are here to rewrite it. You are here to train your subconscious until your old patterns collapse under the weight of your new identity. So do not let this speech be a moment. Let it be a manual. You return to it like a warrior returns to his weapon. Daily, faithfully, relentlessly. And when you forget who you are, you play it again, because your identity is what you repeat. And the man who repeats power becomes power. Say it one final time. I am the rewrite. This is my chapter. This is my new law. And I repeat it until I become it. Now close the old book, pick up the pen, and write the next version of yourself with fire, with faith, and without apology. Let the world witness the rewrite. It begins now.